We're going to talk about Chapter 1, the human body, an orientation. I'm going to switch to the PowerPoint presentation now, and this should be about 10 or 15 minutes. Let's talk about some necessary life functions. And your textbook has these listed as well, different emphasis on some of them, but maintaining boundaries. There's an inside and an outside. And that separation is really important because we need an area for things to happen, and that's inside the cell. And so we have different stuff inside the cell than we do outside the cell. And so there are boundaries that are important to maintain. Movement, even if it's only on a molecular level, there's some movement that occurs in living organisms. There are bacteria that just sit in one place, but there is still an exchange with stuff going into it from the environment and things coming out of it from the cell. But, we generally think of movement as muscular type movement, so I can get up, I can lean back, I can do all sorts of things like that. Responsiveness, and this is important. Our bodies have the ability to detect if there are changes occurring in the environment or inside our body, and it can react to those changes by either changing the way our body's functioning to accommodate it. Our bodies can be hot, and our bodies will end up sweating. So this is very important, because if we didn't have the ability to respond to change, we wouldn't be alive very long, because change happens constantly. We have digestion, which is the absorption of nutrients as well as the breakdown of those nutrients into usable substances. Metabolism, which are chemical reactions that happen within the body. So we have things that break down complex molecules, and that's called catabolism. And then we can build things, which is called anabolism. Additionally, we produce energy, and we regulate. A lot of this regulation is by hormones. We have excretion, where we have to eliminate waste or metabolic reactions. Has to be removed by urine or feces. I got a little ahead of myself. That was not the final one. We also have reproduction, which occurs on a cellular level, to produce a future generation. So all of us started out as one single cell, and that cell doubled, and then that doubled, and so on and so forth, until you got the trillions of cells that make up our bodies. And we have growth, which is increase in cell size and number of cells, possibly. Now, what I was describing a little bit earlier, that was an increase in the number of cells, so that's one type of growth. But after you're born, you have all of the muscle cells that you're going to have in your body. But those cells can continue to increase in size. And so that's also considered growth. There are some inorganic things that have these characteristics. So I include in here being cellular, as anything that is alive is a cell. And to demonstrate that, I'll talk about, say, a fire. So, there is a boundary between where the fire is and where the fire is not. Fires can move, they can sweep across grassland. They respond. If wind blows on them, they'll get bigger. If they get rained on, they will get smaller. They respond to the environment. Digestion, they go in and they break down whatever it is that they're burning. And that process would be metabolism. So we've got breakdown of complex molecules, and they produce energy in the process. Now, it's not regulated by hormones, but it's still doing one of the activities of life. excretion, the leftover ash and carbon dioxide from a fire could be considered excretion. Reproduction. You know, a fire is burning in one place, a burning leaf goes into the air, lands somewhere else, starts another fire. Or just, I've got a match. I've got a fire in one hand, but I put it somewhere else, and now I have another fire. And they can grow in size. So a forest fire starts out as a tiny little thing, maybe just a campfire, but then it can spread to be something huge. So we would say that that fulfills the criteria of life, except that it's not made of cells. Now, we also need certain things to survive. Of the survival need, we need nutrients. Those are things that we can eat, you know, and for our purposes, carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, vitamins, minerals, those types of things. And this is sometimes a good question. What is, we've got life functions and we've got survival needs. And I could put something in that is, you know, I could ask, which of these is not a function? And I could list several of the life functions and put one survival need. Now, for humans, we need oxygen, but be aware that there are life forms that do not need oxygen. There are things at the bottom of the ocean next to volcanic vents that survive on sulfur. So what that should be really is something that we can chemically combine to allow chemical reactions to occur. Water, anything that's alive has a large constituent of water. So for us, it's 60 to 80%. It is actually the most abundant non-organic substance in the body. And it gives a place for reactions to occur. For us, for our survival, we need a fairly stable body temperature. It doesn't have to be exactly 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. It can go up 2 or 3 degrees. It can go down 2 or 3 degrees. But we need to function within a fairly narrow range. And most living things do have a fairly narrow range that they are optimized for. And we have to have atmospheric pressure. Now, without atmospheric pressure, some of our systems wouldn't work. Actually, our lungs rely on external pressure for air to go in. Now, we'll talk about that more when we get into the respiratory system, but atmospheric pressure is important. We don't want too little. I think everybody's seen the sci-fi movies where someone gets exposed to a vacuum and just explodes. By the same token, we don't want too much pressure because that could crush us. And yeah, believe it or not, I do smell sometimes, although that was done 11 years ago. So I haven't seen me smile that much since then. So hopefully that will help you with your materials. That's it for me.